like to call the meeting, this regular meeting of the Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors to order. A couple of housekeeping deals. If you wish to address the board tonight in citizens communication time, we have cards on the ledge there. If you would fill one of those out and get it to our city clerk, it would be beneficial for us to have it. It's not required, but if you would do that, we would appreciate it. The second thing is, if you have your cell phones, if you'll silence your cell phones while the meeting is being conducted, we would appreciate it. This time, we'll have roll call.
Director Minor? Here. Director Hart?
Here.
Director Roberts?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Assistant Mayor Hollibush?
Here.
Director Brewer?
Here.
Mayor Brown?
Here. At this time, we'll stand for the invocation and the pledge to be given by Director Jeff Hart.
May we bow in prayer. Father in heaven, we come to you tonight just thanking you for this beautiful weather that we've had. Father, we pray for all of our citizens. We pray for all of our staff. We especially pray for the safety of our firefighters and our police officers. And Father, as we go through this meeting tonight, we just want to glorify you. We want to make good decisions and the best decisions for our city. And so as we come together as a group, we just want to glorify you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll move right on into citizens communication time. Is there anyone here that wishes to address the board tonight during citizens communication time? Yes. Okay.
Nobody
No one from the audience? Okay, Director Harris.
knows. It's a proclamation on the State of Arkansas Executive Department proclamation. To all to whom these present come breathing. Whereas the state of Arkansas and our citizens recognize the greatly appreciated and contribution of local business and industry to the overall strength, character, and well-being of our state. And whereas residents of Arkansas as well as visitors to our city and town benefit daily from variety of service, product, agriculture and forestry, aerospace, manufacturing, mining, technology, and other accommodations provided by business and industrial sector located throughout the natural state. And whereas our local business and industry from the largest to the smallest provide employment, wages, benefit, economic stability, and thousands of employees and their family. And whereas citizens continue to gain a profound and business return from the business and industrial sector, countless acts of charity and support from community projects and nonprofit programs that reach out to every part of our population. And whereas Business and Industrial Appreciation Month in the state of Arkansas provide an opportunity for city, town, and citizens to recognize and celebrate the contribution of local business and industrial sector make in our daily life. Now, therefore, I, H. Hutchinson, Governor of the state of Arkansas, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of the state of Arkansas, do hereby proclaim November the 21st as Business and Industrial Appreciation Month in Arkansas across the state, and I ask all citizens to join me with the cities and towns and celebrate the richness, diversity, and success of our business and industrial community. In testimony, whereas I have here to set my hands and cause of the Great Seal in the state of Arkansas to be fixed this first day of October in the year of our Lord, and signed by H. Hutchinson, Governor, and John Thurston, Secretary of State. That's it.
Thank you.
I've got something real quick, Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you to all the citizens that came out and helped with the community-wide cleanup. I think that was a great thing for our city, and I know that any trash that we pick up makes a difference. So I just like to thank all of those that showed up and did participate.
I'd like to do a follow-up to that. On 24th Street, evidently someone lost a pillow. You don't know how far the stuffings of a pillow can go when people just keep running over it, and running over it, and running over it. So I did get that one thing done. So I just hope no one else throws a pillow out or loses a pillow, because it was pretty funny in a way. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board? If not, we will adjourn citizens' communication time, and we will move right into our presentations. And today we have 3 city employees for recognition, 1 present tonight. I'd like to recognize Cody Cunningham with the Texarkana, Arkansas Fire Department for 5 years, Andy Anthony with the Police Department for 15 years. And at this time, our city manager will present our finance director, Tyrone Henderson, if she will come forward with her certificate for 10 years. At this time, we'll move into our consent agenda, which item number 2 is approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on October the 18th. Number 3 is to adopt a resolution to reschedule the Monday, December the 6th Board of Directors meeting to Tuesday, December the 7th due to the annual Christmas parade. And number 4 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with Phillips Refrigeration for the kitchen equipment for the Texarkana Rec Center. Yes.
I want to take number 4 out.
Okay, so number 4, Director Harris has removed item number 4. So on the consent agenda now, we have item number 2, which is the minutes, and item number 3 is the rescheduling of the December the 6th meeting. What would be the desire of the board to approve the consent agenda with items 2 and 3?
Motion to
I make a
approve.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda with item number 2 and 3. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the consent agenda passes with 2 and 3. Director Harris, item number 4.
I really don't have nothing too much to say about that. I just didn't want to vote for that in the past. I have not voted for or against that since I was singled out back in 5 former members of this board about what went on there when it was at the one time the Boys and Girls Club. So when this item come up, anything come up this item in the past, I have not voted for or against this item, and I want to continue not voting for or against when issues come up with the former Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. So at this time, we have item number 4, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with Phillips Refrigeration for kitchen equipment for the rec center. We'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
Whereas upon advertisement, a low bid in the amount of $32,793.40 was submitted by Phillips and Sons Refrigeration for the Texarkana Rec Center kitchen equipment. Whereas the funds for such equipment will be from a portion of an AEP SWEPCO Foundation grant of $50,000. Whereas the city manager and staff recommend approval, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the purchase described herein is approved on the terms so stated in the FY 2021 budget is amended for the corresponding expense and receipt of said grant funds, passed and approved this first day of November 2021.
So the city attorney's read the resolution. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Is there any other discussion? If not, could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Present.
Holders,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. And the resolution passes. Moving right on into our regular agenda, item number 5 is to adopt a resolution approving the TWU 2021-2022 budget. Gary Smith and Tricia Briggs.
Mayor, Mr. Ellington, members of the board, we're here to answer any questions that you may have in the presentation we gave a couple weeks ago.
I just want to tell you, thank you for the time that you gave me. You have answered my questions, and I am very pleased. But thank you for the time that you gave.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Any other discussion? If not, what would be the desire of the board to adopt and approve the resolution to adopt the budget?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the TW water budget.
Do I need to read it?
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
Whereas the FY 2021-22 Texarkana Water Utilities budget has been submitted to the Board of Directors for review, and whereas utility staff recommends approval of the budget so presented to the board with income and expense allocations set forth therein, and whereas the city manager and utility staff recommend approval, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the TW FY 2021-22 budget attached here to and made a part hereof is hereby approved, passed this first day in November 2021.
Okay, the city attorney's read the resolution. Now what would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Still a motion to adopt.
Second.
So a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Is there any other discussion from anyone? Could you call the roll?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Holdridge,
Yes.
Ruler,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. And the resolution passes. Gary, thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
So item number 7 is to adopt an ordinance, item number 6 is to adopt a resolution for the city manager to enter into a lease agreement on behalf of the Texarkana, Arkansas Police Department with the Airport Authority for the use of the property and building located at 3801 East 19th Street. Scott Megason, and I see Paul is here as well for the airport.
Good evening, Board, Mr. City Manager, and Mr. Brown. This is actually bringing up to date, we've actually been in this facility since approximately 2005. We use it for storage, also maintaining had a gym in the past and things of that nature. Officers use the showers and the restrooms during the shift if they need to. Also, it's where we house our electronic and fleet services, where they take and completely strip out our cars and re-outfit them with all the lights, the computers and wiring and everything of that nature. Cars basically down to the frame, almost inside. And what this does, it brings us up to date and then establishes the small cost for the city, which the majority is offset through providing training to the airport police for the airport.
Does anybody have any questions for Megason? Yes.
When you say bring you up to date, has there been a lease agreement in the past?
Yes, I believe it was in 2005 was the original, so that's 16 years old.
Oh, okay. Do y'all have any other building y'all leasing?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, yes,
Well, Union School we have.
y'all leasing,
We rent it, yes.
okay. Do y'all have another building downtown?
Yes, we do. 213 Wood Street in the city, we own that building.
Oh, y'all not leasing up?
No.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? Does anyone have any questions for Paul, the airport director? No
Is
questions?
that $1,
Yes.
Paul? Is that what the lease is, $1?
Actually, it has to be fair market value, according to FAA standards.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
Whereas it's come to the attention of the city and the airport authority that it's necessary to enter into a current lease covering the occupancy of 3801 East 19th Street by the Texarkana, Arkansas Police Department and utilized for an emergency operations center, office space, and vehicle equipment storage and minor repair. And whereas in addition to providing certainty with respect to the parties' respective rights and obligations as relate to said occupancy, a current lease meeting certain specifications set out by the Federal Aviation Administration is also a general requirement of FAA policies, including without limitation in connection with FAA periodic review of overall general airport and authority operations and FFA review of certain grant requests. And whereas upon investigation and upon information and belief, it has been determined that an annual rate of $33,075 in equal monthly installments for use and occupancy by a police department is reasonable and within FAA specifications. And whereas in recognition and consideration of certain public safety training provided to airport personnel by TAPD, the airport has agreed to pay to the city an annual amount of $25,121 in equal monthly installments. And whereas the city manager and the executive director of the aviation for the airport authority recommend approval, now therefore be it resolved by the board of directors of the city of Texarkana, Arkansas, that a lease of the space of the airport to the city is approved, the city manager is hereby authorized and directed to enter into a lease agreement with the airport authority containing the terms herein stated and otherwise in form and substance acceptable to the city manager and city attorney, and to the extent necessary, the city's FY 2021 budget is amended to provide for any necessary appropriation for rental expense and the rental expenditure and a receipt of all training funds paid by the airport authority to the city is contemplated herein, passed and approved this first day of November 2021.
So the city attorney's read the resolution. Is there any other discussion? What would be the board's desire to adopt this resolution? Second. So have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Matter,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hollowbush,
Yes.
Ruger,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes, the resolution passes. So moving right along to item number 7, which is to adopt an ordinance amending the personnel policy. Finance Director Tyrone Henderson.
Good afternoon, Mayor Brown, Board of Directors, and City Manager, Mr. Ellington. The following amendments to the Personnel Policy were reviewed and approved by the Personnel Policy Committee on October 7th, 2021. Section 2.16, Age of Eligibility. Consider request to amend Personnel Policy regarding age of eligible fire and police to comply with state statute. 4.10, Holidays. Consider request to include Juneteenth as a recognized city holiday. 5.12, Probationary Periods. Consider request to amend police probationary period from 12 months to 18 months for law enforcement. 6.04, Uniforms and Personal Appearance. Consider request to require all city employees to wear city-issued identification cards. 7.01 through 7.02, General and Acceptable Use Policy. Consider request to amend the General and Acceptable Use Policy. 7.03 through 7.04, Email, Instant Messaging, and Intranet Policy. Consider request to amend email and instant messaging and internet and intranet policy. The purpose of this agenda item is to receive formal approval from the Board of Directors to amend the personnel policy for these recommendations. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
I've been reading so much the past 2 weeks, I said I could not find this. Are employees given their birthday off?
No, sir.
Is that something we can discuss, like when we're working on the budget? Or would that need to go through? the
It would need to go
committee?
through the personnel policy, and then I would need to bring it back to the Board of Directors for approval. But we will most definitely add that request.
I'd like you to go through it and bring it back.
Yes, sir. I sure will.
Tarn, I just have a couple of questions, especially when we get, and Brandon's here, he might can answer a couple of these. So when we get over here, especially when we're talking about password maintenance and those types of things, and I spend a lot of time in that area, my line of work, and protecting and allowing employees to do certain things on the computer, certain things you can't. And I understand that in this policy, we block certain websites and that kind of stuff on that. So one of the things that, when I was reading in here about one of the changes, the frequency and the method of all password changes should be at the discretion of IT. Why can't we put something in place that forces them to change their password in just a certain amount of days? Like I have it set to where all 50 of our employees, it rolls around every 45th day or whatever the policy says, and they're prompted, 10 days out to go ahead and automatically do that, so that we don't have all these things at these discretions, and we're actually being more frugal and making sure that all that gets done.
Mayor, Board, the reason that was put in there is because the most stringent auditing authority that we're subject to in our enterprise is the FBI CJIS security policy. And the FBI CJIS security policy currently mandates 90 days. However, as with all things associated with the federal government, it's subject to change from one year to the next. And by having in the personnel policy at the discretion of the IT department, we can better follow federal CJIS security policy guidelines and NIST standards. It is our intention currently to increase the requirements to be more stringent than what the CJIS security policy currently recommends, or requires, rather.
Okay, but that really didn't answer the question, Brandon. Why don't we have that automated where that comes up to automatically prompt the users?
Are you using the 90 days now, or we're not using anything?
No, we're using the 90 days. Every, 2 weeks out of the 90-day windows, the system starts prompting end users to change their passwords. And when your password hits the 90 days, it forces you to reset the password. A user can also not reset their password several times to prevent someone, say their password was JoeBob1 and they wanted to get back to JoeBob1. The way the system is set now, they can't change their password 24 times back to JoeBob1. You're also
Complexity, what about the complexity of those?
Our current complexity is 9 characters in a number. We are working to change that to Microsoft best practices with multi-factor authentication. But we were waiting on the utilities budget to be approved so we could purchase the necessary licensure to get that implemented. Currently, a city employee cannot use the same password over a period of 2 years.
Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Director Harris.
I have a question. Does the police department have their own personnel policy?
Yes, sir. The police department does have their own set of general rules and orders that they do follow.
Why didn't back the date change in the police policy than the city policy?
That, because what we changed was actually to make the city policy match what was requested by the police chief.
Okay. And then my other thing, I guess question, I know that Senate passed the Juneteenth thing this year, Juneteenth holiday, and I know they kind of bypassed, well, that's maybe here or there, they bypassed another act that they should have been looking at, what the George Floyd Justice Policy Act, but they went ahead and passed the Juneteenth. But the question I'm gonna ask is, what holidays are we following state holidays or federal holidays? And then when the Cesar Sanchez holiday become a federal holiday, are we gonna implement that? What's stopping us from gonna implement that in regards of the Hispanic community in the city?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if y'all know who Cesar Sanchez was, so, but that's, why not, look into making that a holiday, because some may say, well, you got one King holiday, why is you doing Juneteenth? And I'm not trying to get up here and bickering over a holiday, because I think there's more stuff I can be arguing about than a holiday, but if you want to really go out and do something, I would want to do something worthy of trying to see about the city recognizing the Cesar Sanchez holiday. I'm not gonna really go into who he is, but y'all look up, see who he was. That's in regards to the Hispanic community and the Hispanic workers that's working for the city. So.
Yes, sir. Any employee has the right to make recommendations through the city manager to the Personnel Policy Committee. That committee then reviews all of those recommendations and then brings those back for approval. Typically, the city has historically followed the federal holidays, and then those have been brought to the board to be approved in our personnel policy. So if anyone were to submit that, then they would have to go through the city manager for review by the Personnel Policy Committee.
Well, I'm saying federal holiday, the federal holiday does not recognize New Year Eve as a holiday and some other holidays. But like I said, I'm not trying to get into what holidays need to be looked at and which one don't. Like I said, there's some other issues need to be argued at. But I just said, but I just want to know which one, because I know certain cities does not recognize the holiday that we look at, like Hot Spring and Little Rock and Fayetteville. But I'm not gonna get into what holiday that is. But so that's the reason why I asked. But like I said, I would like to see we look into about Cesar Sanchez, and that's what I'm really focusing on him, trying to bring forth him as to recognize as a city holiday in regard to the Hispanic community and the Hispanic workers. So that's why I would like to see look at as
sir, we'll make sure to put that on the list of the city manager.
I have one more question about the email, and the passwords. Are there exemptions to that? Because I haven't had to change my password since I was elected.
There should not be. Based off of the way group policy is configured in our systems, it should be universally enforced. Director Roberts works on our network on the county side, and you change your password every 90 days, correct?
I've never been prompted to change my password.
Well, we will fix that. That's,
I have.
that's unusual. That's,
You didn't change mine, did you?
Well, you will now.
so,
You're locked out in the morning.
I wanna say at least 35 characters, with multiple.
When all I know with the county is it's different than the city, but logging into the computer and the programs that the different offices use, will they be able to use the same password once you log in? That one password is good for everything, or different ones? You have different passwords for different programs?
that's highly dependent on the individual application. We prefer technology called SAML, single sign-on, which captures your credentials from your Windows computer and pulls it into the application. That is a best practice. However, a lot of our applications do not support that. For instance, Wintergrate, the financial package, requires a separate username and password. But for example, SharePoint, we have on our Microsoft for Government Cloud, it uses SAML single sign-on. SAML single sign-on is very secure, and it is considered a best practice.
So Brandon,
Go right ahead, go right ahead.
So Brandon, I know we just passed the budget tonight, but how quickly will you purchase and get multi-year authentication up and running?
I have a valid quote right now, waiting for a budget to purchase the necessary licensure. It's our intention to have what's called conditional access with Microsoft deployed across the enterprise before January 1st. That is contingent on staffing availability, because we also have to do a endpoint protection, EDR, and security operations center implementation before we can do the conditional access with Microsoft Azure.
So will that be software that the employees have on their phone that sends them a text for a 4-digit code, or their email, or will it be both?
The way it will be set up will involve Microsoft Authenticator,
Okay.
which is it's
It's
provided by Microsoft. It's free.
I run them about one more time.
No, sir, you're fine.
If we go ahead and approve this tonight, you can bring back or look at what Director Harris is and the birthdays, that you can bring that back, but we can approve this tonight and always.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
You can supplement the personnel policy at any time. It just requires a vote of the board of directors.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I know I was over there at the water company sometime this year, and I was trying to find out, do our city subsidize y'all what y'all do at the same as Texas, or how that works?
Are you referring to how IT interacts with the
Right,
city?
yeah, how is IT working? for
The
us?
operational budget for information technology is paid with water revenue. However, we do create technology requests for both the utility and both sides of the state line. And that, because we have to have our budget subject to approval by both city council and the board of directors, so.
Now, what I'm getting at, we pay, give y'all enough money for what y'all need to do? I don't know if I'm asking the right question. That's the standpoint from what Texas does, you know?
Neither of the cities provide money to the IT department's operational fund, which covers benefits, salaries for staff, as well as our day-to-day expenses. However, we do coordinate with both of the finance departments for enterprise-wide projects, I guess. An example would be the enterprise agreement with Microsoft for Texarkana, Arkansas. it's the utility pays for that, and then we back bill the city, and everything comes out.
Okay. The reason why, like I said, when I asked that question, I was just trying to see what they were referring to when I was over there, back in, I think it was May, and it was some technology. I was asking what could be done with the city, and they were just saying that our city does not, give the money for a certain project or certain things like what Texas does or something like that. So,
The Texarkana, Texas they have 3 employees that work in the IT department. 2 of them work in Central Records and Communications, and that's jointly funded by both cities and the county. And then the Texas side police department has a single technician as well. The Arkansas side police department has a single IT technician. But as far as the cost for staff, for the technicians, for our senior specialists, our project manager, that comes from water revenue.
okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we have the city attorney read the resolution.
Mayor, this is an ordinance. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is an ordinance that will need to be read 3 times. If so, tonight, is there a motion to have it read in its abbreviated form?
Motion.
So the motion, is there a second?
Second.
So the motion is second to have the ordinance read on its first reading tonight in abbreviated form. Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending the City of Texarkana, Arkansas personnel policy, including without limitation ordinance number K-570 as amended for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its first reading tonight in abbreviated form. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading tonight?
Second reading, abbreviated form, please.
Second.
Motion and a second to have it read on its second reading tonight. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending the City of Texarkana, Arkansas personnel policy, including without limitation ordinance number K-570 as amended, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire to have the ordinance read on its third and final reading?
Motion for third reading, abbreviated form.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second.
Did we call the roll on the second?
Did we?
We didn't call the roll on the second.
Did we?
Yeah.
All right.
Hold on. Second reading,
You need some cat.
second reading.
Apparently I do.
Did we both go to sleep?
I guess so.
All right, so now where are we?
first and second.
So we're on
Go to third,
a motion and a second to have it read on its third
Third.
reading tonight.
Okay, motion, in abbreviated form for, third and final reading.
Second the motion.
All right, have a motion and a second to have it read on its third reading abbreviated form. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending the City of Texarkana, Arkansas personnel policy, including without limitation ordinance number K-570 as amended, declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its third and final reading. What would be the desire of the board to adopt it?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Prior to the board voting to adopt, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against? Hearing none, could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris, Oliver,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes, and the ordinance passes. So we have way too many ordinances and way too many resolutions, and they're all jumbled up on the agenda, city manager, so it's keeping me confused. So now we're gonna move into another resolution. So,
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
This one has an emergency clause
it does?
requested. Is that right? Am I right?
Yes.
no, I thought number 9 does.
Seven.
7 does, I'm sorry. 7 doesn't have a, not on mine, does it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so, we'll back up again. So the personnel policy ordinance, we just passed an emergency clause. It's been asked, what would be the desire of the board to approve an emergency clause?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So a motion and a second to approve the emergency clause. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Roberts?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Kovish?
Yes.
Brewer?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes. Emergency clause passes. Now we're moving into number 8, to adopt a resolution to reschedule the 2022 Board of Directors meetings that conflict with certain holidays. City Clerk.
The reason why this is on the regular agenda is because of the Juneteenth holiday. I want to make sure that that was approved before we approve the 2022 calendar.
Is there any other discussion? Have the city manager read the resolution.
Whereas certain holidays and events will conflict with the scheduled Board of Directors meeting during 2022, whereas meetings should be rescheduled to avoid these conflicts, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Arkansas that the meeting scheduled for January 3rd is hereby scheduled for January 4th. Due to New Year's Day holiday, January 17 is hereby rescheduled to January 18. Due to Martin Luther King Jr. Day holiday, February 21 is hereby rescheduled to February 22. Due to President's Day holiday, July 4 is hereby rescheduled to July 5. Due to Independence Day holiday, September 5 is rescheduled to September 6. Due to Labor Day holiday and December 5 is hereby rescheduled to December 6. Due to annual Christmas parade, all those dates are in 2022. Passed and approved this first day of November 2021.
So city attorney's read the resolution. Is there any other discussion?
I'm just reading this. We got 14 holidays, if I'm correct. 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's only 11 federal holidays. Do what?
14?
That is correct, 14 federal holidays. That's correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, what would be the motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
Motion to adopt.
Second. Could you call the roll, please?
Minor?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Roberts?
Yes.
Harris?
No.
Kovish?
Yes.
Brewer?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes. All right, moving right along to number 9 is an ordinance. So it's to adopt an ordinance authorizing the purchase of a 100 Glock Model 45 Black MOS Compact 9mm Gen 5 with the sights. James Axley.
Mayor, City Manager, Board, thank y'all. The ordinance being brought to you is for the purchase of 100 Model 45 Glock MOS Compact 9mm. This will allow us to move forward in our upgrade package that we're doing on our pistols. We currently carry a Glock 45 9mm. However, it's not the MOS package. The MOS stands for Modular Optic System, which when we do the gun trade and we get those new ones, it'll allow us to put a red dot holographic sight on the top of the pistol. This will allow officers to more quickly and accurately identify and address threats if that comes to that situation. One of the common things with sights that you deal with iron sights is if you've shot before, the focus on iron sights is the front sight. You have to focus on the front sight as opposed to the threat. A lot of times people will close one eye to get better focus on that front sight. These sights will allow you to use both eyes open. You can see more of your peripheral, and you're focused on the threat, and the red dot uses the threat as your front sight. You're not focused back on your gun, taking your eyes off of what you're looking at. So it'll allow them to address that situation more quickly and hopefully come to a good resolution.
Actually, I have a question, brother.
Yes, sir.
This is gonna be trigger, the laser's gonna be trigger activated, right?
No, this will just be motion activated.
Just
It's not a
motion,
laser.
okay.
It will simply be a sight on the top with a red dot holograph inside of it. So there will never be a laser projected out towards the person. It will be inside the sight. There'll be a red dot in there. So you're looking through the glass,
All right.
and there'll be a red dot. When you put the red dot, that's where your target acquisition
Okay,
is.
good deal.
So,
I thought it was pretty similar to what we used in the military.
Yes, sir.
I see what you-
yes, sir. Any questions?
Any other discussion? I'll remind the board too, this is an ordinance. an emergency clause has been requested. What would be the desire of the board to have the ordinance read on its first reading tonight?
Motion. Second.
In abbreviated form?
Yes, please.
So a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Colvin,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the acquisition of 100 Glock 9mm pistols with holographic sights, waiving any applicable competitive bidding provision for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading?
Second reading in abbreviated form, please.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its second reading tonight. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Colvin,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the acquisition of 100 Glock 9mm pistols with fixed sights for use with holographic sights, waiving any competitive bidding provision for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its third and.
Second.
That's the second.
Jeez, we gotta fix my agenda somehow. Gotta get my head straight. So the ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its third and final reading?
Third and final reading in abbreviated form, please.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to have it read on its third and final reading. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Colvin,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the acquisition of 100 Glock 9mm pistols with fixed sights for use with holographic sights, waiving any applicable competitive bidding provision for declaring an emergency and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its third and final reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it adopted?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against? Hearing none, could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Colvin,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. So the ordinance passes. The police department has asked for an emergency clause. What would be the desire of the board to attach an emergency clause?
Motion to attach.
Second.
So a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Colvin,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes, an emergency clause passes. So moving on to another ordinance, item number 10 is to adopt an ordinance to rezone a tract of land located at 110 East 14th Street from C3 open display commercial to R4 medium density residential to develop rental property. Ms.
Good
Beck.
evening, Mayor, Directors, Mr. Madison, Mr. Ellington. Yeah, the property in question is crosshatched here. There are two individual lots that were platted in 1881 as part of Deutschman's first edition. At one time, there was a commercial operation on the property, and so it was zoned C3 at that time. The property is currently vacant. It was purchased for the purpose of developing residential rental property by Mr. McDowell, and so it's adequately served by water in Laurel Street and a sewer line in the alley. There's a fire hydrant on the corner here. It's surrounded by residential zoning and residential land use on the north, the east, and the south, and by commercial zone and commercial operation to the west. There was some opposition from Mr. Ray Bursey, who lives on the north. He would rather the property stay undeveloped, just for his personal reasons, and so we certainly, consider that. But the planning commission looked at the highest and best use of the land, and on a vote. I think Mr. Hickerson moved to approve and was seconded by get to the right page here.
Coker and Dupree were absent, everybody else voted for.
Yeah,
It was.
it was 5-0.
Motion by Boots.
Yeah.
Boots and seconded by, Dr. Hickerson. So they recommend approval.
Is there any other questions or any questions for Ms. Beck? So I'll remind the board, this is an ordinance. So at this time, what would be the desire of the board to have the ordinance read on its first reading tonight?
Motion read in abbreviated form.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its first reading. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K 286 is amended and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading?
Second reading in abbreviated form, please.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to have it read on its second reading. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K 286 is amended and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its third and final reading?
Third and final reading in abbreviated form, please.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to have it read on its third and final reading. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K 286 is amended and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its third and final reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it adopted?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt, is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this ordinance? Hearing and seeing none, could you call the roll?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. The ordinance is adopted. So moving to item number 11 is to another ordinance, is to adopt an ordinance to rezone a tract of land located at 612 Thatcher Street containing 3 residents from C3 open display commercial to R4 medium density residential in order to replat the property for individual investments. Ms. Beck.
Good evening again. And this is very similar in the fact that we're going from a C3 zoning to a request for an R4 zoning. And also that this property was zoned as part of the 1988 long-term comprehensive plan that provided for development back a few hundred feet from 9th Street, Highway 82, it says here on the map. And it's zoned on all sides by C3, but there are 3 individual properties here. They're like Jim Walter houses, they're 32 by 24 feet. And they were purchased this way apparently on this single parcel of land in 1982 prior to our zoning. In order to sell these properties individually, these houses, it has to be platted, and in order for it to be platted into residential plat, it has to be zoned residential. So that's why the request is, even though it's kind of embedded in this C3, this is a vacant lot down here. It has a slab with an awning. It has an RV parked there that belongs to the property owner over here. So it really, it doesn't have commercial land use going on around it. This is a residence to the north also. The only really commercial operation going on is the mini warehouses on the east side. There's a water main and a sewer line located in Thatcher Street. The fire hydrant is just off the screen here. It's quite a ways away, but this isn't new construction, so that would be an issue to be concerned about. But the planning commission, they looked at this and considered the request and the reason for it and the circumstances, and they recommend approval.
Okay. Anyone have any questions of Ms. Beck? If not, this is an ordinance. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its first reading?
Motion first reading abbreviated form.
Second.
So motion and a second to have it read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Olabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K 286 is amended and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading?
Second reading, abbreviated form, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to have it read on its second reading tonight. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Olabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K 286 is amended and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its third and final reading?
Third and final reading in abbreviated form, please.
Second.
So a motion and a second to have it read on its third and final reading. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Olabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance amending ordinance number K 286 is amended and for other purposes.
So the ordinance has been read on its third and final reading. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt, is there anyone that wishes to speak for or against this ordinance? Hearing none, could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Olabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. And the ordinance is adopted. So that's all the business under our regular agenda that we've been presented tonight. At this time, we'll move into our Board of Directors commentary. Is there any board member that wishes to make comments? Terry Roberts.
Chief Benny, question. How is No Shave November going?
Oh,
That's,
it's
I mean,
going well.
Captain Ashley doing pretty good back here.
Yes, in the first week and a half, we've already raised $10,000.
Fantastic,
So we've still got 4 weeks to go, so the more money, the more kids we get to bring.
fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other
I
board
wanted to
comments?
say, if you happened or to just walk through the Fall Festival on Broad Street this weekend, oh my goodness. You think, oh, I have never seen so many people, and it's just wonderful. Wonderful. So next year, if you have kids, you need to take your kids or go yourself.
All right. At this time, we'll move into our city manager report.
Mr. Mayor, board members, and our audience, I've got a couple items for you. First, I want to remind you, board members, if you hadn't turned that evaluation in to me, please do that. The next piece is our budget as we, Tyrone and I move forward. I'd like to remind you, we do have 2 workshops coming up, and they're on, let's see, the 18th at 2:30 in the afternoon, and then December the 2nd at 4:30 in the afternoon. On the first one, on the 18th, we'll cover capital items and our fees that are part of the budget
The
process.
18th is what time?
2:30. And then December 2nd's at 4:30, and that's, we will cover our departments during that time period. I have a couple of requests, if you'd like to review the process of the budget. I'll make some time with you. I know I have two new board members. I will make time with y'all, and if anybody else would like to review the budget process with me, just let Linda or I know, and we'll get that scheduled.
When are we gonna get the proposed budget in writing? When are we gonna get that?
Next Wednesday is the tentative date for it to be out. So that is the 10th.
So will you send those out, Tyrone?
Yes, you will get an electronic version and also a paper copy.
Yeah, I want a paper copy.
Yes, you'll get both of them.
Okay, good.
We'll get both of them, and then we'll try to get these individual meetings with you to go back through the process and, done before the 18th, so we can prepare you for that as well. Also have, a little different, look at the budget this year that you have not experienced. This is one of my concepts that I'd like to propose to you. I'll have things that I propose to you that are part of the city manager's budget, and then I will have some items that I call decision packages, which will be items that you will look at and grade and try to figure out whether you want all or part or some of those items as part of the budget process. So we'll work our way through those together. Next, to remind you, the two committee meetings this week at 4 and 5 o'clock on Thursday, on the 4th. We'll start with economic development at 4 o'clock, and then we'll move on to solid waste at 5 o'clock right after that, to get those out of the way
I'm
for us.
assuming you've not finished that book I've given you. It's called Death by Meeting.
Yeah.
I'm still reading that in there.
Cool.
Yeah, that's just those who are on the solid waste committee. Plus
Well, it's
the
open to anyone.
presenters.
It's open to any of you.
Right, but I mean-
Yes. All our
Okay.
committees are open to
Gotcha.
anybody, but you are assigned to different committees as well. But again, Mayor, when I looked at that, I said, well, we got a couple of budget meetings, we got a couple of other committee meetings, and then we have two regular meetings too. So I did load you up a little bit this month, so.
I think you need to have a meeting with the mayor to discuss the book.
I've read the book.
I'll also be heading over to Arkadelphia tomorrow for a couple-hour session with the city manager in Arkadelphia. Of course, again, I'm just reaching out to some of these guys and gals, and we're talking about common things, and we're just learning from each other about how we're running our operations. I am also working, Adam and I are working on kind of what we call a community programming review. And this is an analysis of the facilities that we have, both in the school system, in our park system, out with our nonprofits, and talking about programming primarily for our youth, and trying to figure out, do we have any gaps in that programming, whether it be facility gaps or programming gaps. And so we've started that review process, and we're working with our nonprofits in that manner as well. I had one question for y'all. We passed out the LifeNet report to you. If you'd like, I doubt they probably presented to us in some time. So I thought we may try to figure sometime between now and the first of the year at least to have them come present where they are. I'm not sure they talked about the community or their service very well in the public realm, so I thought that might be something good that we could offer at one of our meetings if you so desired to do that with me. I don't invite a whole lot of people in, but some of these that are public-based services, I'd like to have them present to us.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. That's all, Mr. Mayor, that's all I got this evening.
I got a question. Do you know what date is to pass the city budget? About what
We're
statute?
proposed to pass the budget on December the 6th, our first meeting in December.
The reason I ask that, I don't I don't think that by the state law, I think it had to be passed to by January the 31st of next year. I could be wrong on that date, but I'm just saying there's no really big hurry.
You have that actual date, Tyrone?
Yes, it is actually, I think it's February the 1st, but if we don't pass it by December 31st, we have to do the same thing we did with the TW budget, which is pass a operations budget for that first month so that we can operate the first 31 days of the year.
Have we heard from Cynthia and them on our audit as far as when we might?
We are waiting on the TW audit to be complete. As soon as their audit is complete, they'll be able to finish ours. That's the last little piece we're waiting on.
Any other questions, anything needs to come from the board? Our next meeting date will be Monday, November the 15th. If nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
So a motion is second to adjourn. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Meyer,
Yes.
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Oliver,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes, we're adjourned.